The first thing I wanted to ask you, I've looked at I kind of religiously started watching all your videos. Kind of got hooked on them. I think I told you that as well. But I was watching one of the videos, and you were saying like your childhood, like growing up, and just like running through the mountains, and it kind of seemed like half of the stuff you talked about in some of the historical and mythological stuff. It kind of seemed like something from 100 years ago, like, and it's
Mm,
that's only 20 years ago. Like
mm.
you kind of it seemed like you lived a childhood that was very free and
Mm.
stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, and actually Daniel is my brother's name as well. So I have an affinity for the name Dan, and my grandfather was Danny as well. So it's good to be on the podcast, Dan. And definitely, and also as well, I mentioned it quite a lot, and about we kind of had this. So I grew up in Tralee town. So I did grow up in we were townies, like, but there was this. There we lived on the kind of the edge of the town. So literally throw a stone, you're into a kind of a wood, like, you know what I mean? Or, if you just went walking for about 2 miles, you're up the mountain. But also, as well as that, my dad used to bring us every summer because he was like a fishery bailiff back to West Kerry. And we used to go back every summer, myself and my brother, with my dad. And we used to spend like the whole summer literally not on a river, like we were living practically next to a river. So we used to swim in the rivers, we used to fish, we used to be out in the sea on boats. We were running wild in the fields there, like, and so yeah, that was all. That was that's the way we lived. So then there was the other half of our life, or not half, but three-quarters of our life was in the town. Do you get me? So really, those kind of experiences all kind of happened during the summer. It was always the other seasons you're in school and you were kind of not really going out into the country because of the weather and stuff like that. So like a quarter of my childhood from when I was born right up until around 20 years old, I was spending a lot of time in the countryside. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it just kind of the reason I mentioned it was kind of I think it links to like a lot of the stuff you talk about, like all the even all like the old stories. Like it always links. Like whenever I think about any of them old real like Irish mythology, I always think of like my childhood. Like it's always stuff like you hear in
Mm,
primary school, like even like
mm,
the most simple ones like Cú Chulainn or something, and like
yeah.
like all the real like generic like Irish
Mm,
like mythological stuff you hear, and it's like I don't know, it just gives you like you just kind of feel free. But like you seemed like you had a real kind of a free childhood, and one of those that did that kind of like being out in the nature where like most of these like Irish myths are based like out in the real old Irish nature. Did that kind of link to like your interest in it, do you think?
yeah. No, totally, man. Yeah. Like as I said, um, like kind of rehashing the video that you're talking about. I think it was the one where I just talked about. Yeah, it was the one where I was talking about. We used to go up into the mountain, and we'd be up in the mountain and expecting half expecting it to be a fairy forest almost. You know what I mean? And but also as well, I've mentioned this in another podcast that we kind of driving back to West Kerry, where we were staying was back in Clahan by Brandon. My dad would always kind of say these stories like along the way because I was always interested. I had this fascination with the supernatural as well. Like as a child, I was kind of weirdly, oddly fascinated with the ghosts and things. Like I was terrified, but also equally fascinated. So I always had this kind of intrigue around supernatural, mysterious, and stuff. And my dad would always have these kind of weird kind of stories going back. Every time we were going back, but not every time, but almost every time. You'd be like, look up at the house now. There was a mansion. It was a derelict kind of mansion. Was it derelict, or maybe it wasn't derelict, sorry, there was people who owned it, but they were never there. There were rich people who owned it. Apparently, like this really famous actress bought this house. It's going back to Clahan, and she kind of saw the house. I think it was during Ryan's daughter or something. She saw the house and she bought it literally afterwards. But anyways, that house, and you're looking up, you can barely see it. Of course, it was behind woods and stuff like that, and you could just barely see the corner, and you could see like the white kind of windows, and be just looking up, like kind of seeing that there's someone standing in the window or imagining it, like.
Yeah.
And then my dad would say something like on Connor Pass, the old High King, like, was total nonsense because there was no High Kings there, like, but that's what he would say, kind of, it didn't really matter the actual context. It was just there's something up in the mountain, the old king, and this kind of thing was And I also like Brandon Mountain has this kind of weird vibe when you're on the other side of Brandon Mountain, down in the Brandon Bay side, and you look up. It's very ominous, and it's always very dark, and there's always clouds. It just seems to be like that all year round, and that kind of presence, kind of, it was always stoking my imagination. You know what I mean? So that's definitely, yeah, for sure. That, to answer your question, like that childhood really inspired my imagination.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
And stuff like that does definitely like stick with you. I've never had like too many like experiences like that where I've seen something that has kind of made me think, wow, like that is, as you said, like ominous about like up in the mountains and you're looking up like that. But I always think like the likes of like real rural, like Kerry, like real, like any place like real rural, even like the gate, like even out in the west, like I saw Tommy Tiernan did a documentary, and
Mm.
it seems like the most Irish place, like you see like the real old like cottages, the real like old brick stone walls, and
Mm.
it just kind of feels like there's stories there. Like it just,
Mm.
like it's a lot easier to look at than just these fucking high rise flats in the city centre in Dublin.
Mm.
Like there's culture in, you just see the West, and it's probably, it's, I think it's the best place in the country to be if you really want to be like in touch with what Ireland
Absolutely.
actually is like.
Yeah, absolutely. I spent 3 weeks out in the Blasket Islands about 5 years ago now, 2018. And I got a writer's grant from the Kerry County Council. It was amazing. Was it 2019? Maybe 2018, 2019. And I was out there for 3 weeks. And just like you said, I was out in the island, like no electricity, no hot water, but it was during the heat wave. It was 2018, actually, during that time when the grass of Ireland was going orange, Um, and you could just feel it off the place. It was like there was 50 books written on the island about the islanders, from islanders and from people that went there. And it was just like you could just, everything about the place was storyful, like, you know what I mean? There were so many people that have passed away on the island, so many people that lived there over the generations, and because of the artistry of the place as well, like that was kind of lending to the, but even as like a someone in my 30s, I was getting that kind of childful, kind of playful imagination about the place. So yeah, definitely, as you were saying, west of Ireland definitely has that appeal. Maybe that's why Banshee of Inisherin is that's maybe the real reason why it's doing so well. I haven't even seen it yet, but I think it's something to do with that rural west, out in the out in the wild Atlantic Ocean, like, you know what I mean? There's something about that, like.
There is, yeah. No, it's kind of, it is powerful. Like whenever you're out, I must try and get out there a bit more often because I know
Mm.
I've kind of repeating myself, but it is a powerful fucking place.
Where
Like,
are
and
you
it
from,
does.
Dan? Actually, by the way, whereabouts are you based?
I'm from Kildare.
All right, okay,
So
yeah,
fairly
not too
far
far
away
from
from,
me.
but I know my auntie has a house out in Achill, so we're there. Like it's literally on the top
Yeah,
of a hill. Like it's real. Like the driveway is literally like your car could nearly tip backwards. It's that steep.
yeah,
Like, so it's
yeah,
it's going up there, and you're literally overlooking all the mountains,
yeah,
and it's just, and the thing I like about it is there's no real like industrialization of the place. It's just
yeah,
kind of there. It's just
yeah,
grass. There's just hills. There's sheep. There's water. Like it's just, it's like, as I always is you'd see from old age history, like things used to be like, you know,
yeah,
it's yeah, it's just kind of nice. It's so peaceful. Like I think that's, people you need a trip away there every now and then, just because you have to get away from the kind of noise. Like, and it's so,
absolutely.
you'd stand and look, and it's just, there's not a breath of wind. It's just dead quiet. Like
Yeah,
it's some place to be like.
yeah. West Kerry's as well is very unindustrialized. Can I say
I
unindustrialized?
think
It's
that's a
there's
word.
no
Sounds like a word.
I don't
Kind
know.
of.
Maybe there's someone correct us in the comments or whatever. Someone, because I always get that. I'm always being corrected on my TikToks about my different things. I'm used to it now. But I'm definitely not the smartest guy in the world. But no, like the reason why there's so many stone forts, I've only just found this out recently. Stone forts and ancient sites left in West Kerry, because there's no the lack of industrialization. And I think what you said about that being the case in certain places, and you going there, putting down your phone for a while. It's okay to take pictures and stuff like that. We had our phones at the Blasket Islands, but like if you could just put it down for a while and just take it in, and you don't have that industrialization, you don't have the noise, the regular noise anyway. Like the first night I went onto the Blasket Islands, there's seals on the beach, like, and they were crying, and I was just imagining, like, because I was like, you're on an island all of a sudden there, and you're 3 weeks ahead of you in this cottage with no electricity. It's just, you're out in the wild and you're hearing crying, like, coming from the beach. And I was just imagining, because I was half asleep and I was saying to myself, there's someone actually outside the window crying. Like, it sounds like a child. You know what I mean? But it's not, it's the seals.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's just that kind of thing. You're brought in, that kind of nature and that kind of experience. People need to have that every now and again, you know, for sure.
How did you get on with the no water? Or did you say no water or just no electricity?
There was no electricity, and also there was limited water, because especially at that time there was a shortage of water. So by the end of it, we were running out of water. So we couldn't actually, because we were running a cafeteria. I kind of got involved. Like, I wasn't meant to be doing this stuff, but I loved it so much. I got involved with the cafe, and I got to know all the people that were managing it, and I just loved it. It was an amazing experience. And we were running out of water, couldn't let the public use the toilets and stuff like that. It's just there was a well, like, and it was actually right at the bottom. And like, so we were having, like, we had to have, so basically it was cold showers like every single day. But I was doing that William Hoff thing at the time. I don't do it now, but I was doing it at the time. Glad I had that experience, because it helped me in that experience to do cold showers every single day, like, you know. But yeah, so that's it. Yeah, that's to answer your question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I kind of just thought of a few kind of questions,
Yeah.
a few specific ones to ask you. One of them was like, what's your favorite? Like, what's your well, I say favorite, like favorite Irish history story, or like Irish mythology story, or whatever way you want to put it.
My favorite Irish history, because they're kind of different in the sense that for me, they're all history, but they're different types of it. Like, we have our mainstream history, then we have our more mythological / mainstream history, and then we have our mythological history. So for me, the one, Nine of the Nine Hostages, was the one where, now this is not my favorite, but it was the one where they reckon that was like the edge of myth. So really, so before Nine of the Nine Hostages, kind of around the same time as St. Patrick, maybe a little bit after, or maybe a little bit before. But anyway, he was at the edge of myth, almost like Ragnar Lothbrok, actually. They reckon that he might not have even existed. The reality is he probably did. They're not quite sure. So that's the way history and myth actually kind of coincides, is that because of writing and because of literacy, kind of mainstream history kind of grew out of the fact that they started writing stuff down. But before that, it's mythology, because it wasn't written down, it was passed on orally. But Brian Boru is definitely my favorite Irish mainstream history story. And basically his whole life, because what he did, he overturned the 600-year dynasty of high kingship from the Northern O'Neills. And as a Munster man, it's kind of a proud thing, you know, like that. He wasn't, it wasn't just him doing it for any sort of, obviously there was probably personal pride in it, but I think he saw what was going to happen in Ireland, which did happen 100 years later. That's my own theory. That's definitely my favorite story. His whole life, especially from when he was around 36, 37 years old, when he took the high kingship of Munster, the kingship of Munster, and then all the way to the Battle of Clontarf, when he defeated the last invasion of the Vikings, but also died in the process. That's definitely my favorite historical story. In terms of mythological story, again, it kind of links to Brian, because he was fascinated by Fionn McCool and the Fianna, and he would have kind of incorporated his own vision at that period of life, when he was in his late teens, early 20s. He would have went off into the wilds of County Clare and lived in the mountains with his own men, because he rebelled from the family, because they wouldn't avenge for the death of his own family members. And he went on his own crusade and basically started attacking different ports of the Vikings and stuff along the rivers. And he would have been inspired by Fionn McCool. So I think that's an amazing story as well, about Fionn McCool and his Fianna, because they're all aristocratic. People don't realize that as well. And they went off and they kind of lived off the land, and they were kind of like warrior poets. Like, there's something fascinating about that. And I feel like that's kind of, when we were growing up in Ireland, in Kerry, when we were growing up, we kind of had that nature about us as well. We were rebellious. We were going off we weren't rebellious in the sense we were doing anything that people didn't know about. My parents knew we were going up into the mountains. But once we were up there, we were wild, like, and we did everything, and kind of even though it's not Irish, it's Huckleberry Finn kind of a life. But the one that I'm fascinated by as well, which is not necessarily mythology, but more folklore, is the Banshee. Because also it relates to Brian Boru as well, that they would have had a Banshee in the family called Aveen. And apparently her cave, and I can't find where the cave is on any Google Maps or any sort of research, is very difficult around it, but there's a genuine cave in Clare around Killaloo, and it's still there. And apparently she lives in that cave. And that's where Brian would have seen her first. And he would have seen her at different times in his life. And he would have seen her the night before the Battle of Clontarf. And that's why he was very much staying back in the tent, praying and stuff like that, because he knew there was going to be a lot of death in his own family, because she was crying the night before the Battle of Clontarf. So I know it's all kind of related about Brian Boru, but I kind of like doing that. I like interchanging it with actual history, because it makes it more identifiable to people as well. Because I think the problem, and sorry, now I'm going a bit long-winded, I think the problem you were saying about in school, they make everything generic about myth, and they make everything very much Fionn McCool and Cú, and the Cú Chulainn story is amazing when he hit the stone and he killed the hound, and that's how we got our sport of hurling. But I like to kind of relate it to our own historical figures who would have taken inspiration, and then kind of relate it to my own life, who we've took inspiration from as well. Michael Collins would have done that as well. A lot of the rebels over the last 100 and 200 years, 300 years, they would have been inspired by myths and would have been inspired by historical characters as well. So that's my answer.
Yeah,
bit long-winded.
Yeah, but no, you are right. Though. I was kind of going to say something similar to that about like how the likes of, like you said, Brian Boru, like, going toe to toe with the Vikings and stuff like that, and then the inspiration, and like all of them, like Defina, like all them stories, like, and the likes of as you just said, like the likes of Collins and all the rebels in 1916 and War of Independence, and 1798, sorry, as well, I meant to say that, who all, and that was, I'm guessing that was a major inspiration to them, like, and that's like, these are just stories that are magical to people, and they're stories of freedom, like, and that's, when you're oppressed for 700 plus years, that has to get into your psyche, like. And Michael Collins, like, that was another guy I wanted to ask about, because he's just like, he just kind of, I think he just kind of epitomizes hero for the country. I think, what he did for the country, and a lot of other lads as well, like, not just him, but I think I don't know much about Brian Boru, but he seems kind of a similar character to him, and just his whole aura, like, I don't, obviously never met him, but like, his whole aura, anything I read about him, or any movies ever, or that movie I watched him in, or anything you ever read about him, he just seems like this powerful kind of a figure. It's just inspiring, like, that's.
Do you know what's interesting there, as you're saying as well, about the 1798 rebellion as well, and also all the other people involved in the rebellions, the kind of rebellion, War of Independence time, and before them as well, just kind of around, there was other little things happening as well. A lot of the time, these guys were aristocratic. And I think that's what defeated Collins in the end, because he was a normal guy. And I think that's why a lot of us resonate with Michael Collins, is because he was just a regular farmer kind of a guy, like, but he had this unbelievable spirit that he was like one in 10 million kind of a person. I think there's something about his relationship with his father, that, because when I started looking into his own relationship with his father was very old when he had Michael, like, he was extremely old. He was in his 70s, So Michael Collins' father, Michael John Sr., he would have married Mary Ann O'Brien when he was 62 years old, and she was only in her 20s. And he started having kids. Michael was, I think, the last kid and a child, and he was around 72 at the time, Michael John Sr. So he would have been 78 when Michael was 6 when he died. So imagine that relationship that he had with him. So I imagine my own grandfather, who was actually only, my own grandfathers who were only in the early 70s when they died, unfortunately. But imagine they were my dad. It would have been kind of like a grandfather-father relationship, but it would have been more intense, because as an older man, when you have a smaller child, you kind of take more care of them and you understand more about life. And I just have this vision of Michael and his father being in the fields, like, and he's really, because he was a very passionate patriot himself, Michael John Senior, and I would imagine he was whispering into his ears about Ireland, like, you know, just really hammering home, like, about how powerful this country is and what this country means. And I think subconsciously, now this is all my own theories. People might think I'm bonkers because I'm making this. It's not. I'm not making it up. I'm research, like, facts about life and about what could have happened, what fed Michael, like, you know, like, and you know, and the reality of what age his father was. So, and they were very close. Like, all the writings and all the biographies are written around them, they would have said that they were a very tightly knit family and they were very happy, you know, and they lived in the farm kind of lands, like, you know. So imagine he would have been feeding them all this stuff, like, and I think there was just this real desire and hunger in Michael to really fight for Ireland. But he was from West Cork, like, and he was dealing with the likes of Eamon de Valera and the likes of other people that were more, you know, how would I say it, maybe even streetwise, you know. You know, I'm not saying that Michael wasn't streetwise. He had something else, which was unbelievable intelligence and brute force and power. But maybe, and I think in the end, he kind of knew it, that he was being ousted, and he knew that he signed his own death warrant. He even said it himself. But it was almost that sacrifice, you know. It was almost that sacrifice. And I don't know where I'm going with that, but they were inspired. And as I was saying, those aristocratic people that were around, the other rebellions, they were madly inspired by the poets, by the myths. W.B. Yeats was a pure, like, he was almost like one of the rebels as well, because he would have been hanging around with these guys, and he would have been kind of in those circles, you know. And a lot of these rebels were they were kind of like poets themselves, and they would have been, you know, in those circles, you know. So it's all very romantic, you know. That's the thing about mythology as well. It's a romantic story, you know. And I think these historical characters are romantic, and we kind of look back and we can kind of say, wow, like, it's amazing what they did. And I think, and I'll definitely say no more on this question, on this answer, but I definitely think for there to be change in the world, the aristocratic elite class, it has to be a breakaway group from the people that run things. There has to be, they have to change something. The people don't have the power, like they do when they gather in numbers, but we do need to have a powerful aristocratic force that are inspired by these things to change, and that we can follow them, much like Michael and all the other heroes, you know, that died for Ireland, you know.
Yeah, and do you think there's been a bit of a, like you're saying, like the aristocratic elites that have to kind of look up to the likes of, we'll say, Collins and whatever, anyone else you want to mention? Do you think they maybe don't, in the way that it used to be, we'll say 100 years ago, 100 years ago? That would have been, well,
would have
anyway,
been 100.
around then, yeah. Do you think that there's kind of been maybe a disconnect from that, like, strong kind of patriotic thing? Do you think there's been a disconnect from that?
Yeah, 110%. I think it's been, for me, theorizing again, I think it's been systematic. I think it's been an absolute 100% plan in action. I'm not talking about conspiracy theories now, for God's sake. I'm not a conspiracy theorist at all. But you just study history and you look at what happened. Look who was killed, and look who was taken out, and look who got into power, and look at the institutions around that, and look what happened. And you can say it for yourself. It doesn't take it. You don't have to be conspiracy theorists. You just have to have a little bit of IQ, you know, not even above average, just average enough if you just take the time. Michael Collins was taken out because he was too much of a danger. Like, he was on a mission to bring much change to Ireland. Then I heard this very interesting theory that I'm not going to, I promise I'll answer your question, but I did hear this one theory from one guy who, which was interesting because I never heard this before. They were like saying, oh, Michael Collins was too dangerous because he was turning into a fascist dictator. Let's look at it from both sides. Maybe you could say, okay, fair enough, potentially, to look at both sides with a balanced view. But he was a man that was for Ireland, and everything he did was for Ireland. He even signed his own death warrant for Ireland. Let's look at the last 100 years. What happened? Eamon de Valera got into power, didn't leave power for I don't know how long. He was president for like 20 something years or something in total. It was crazy. The Catholic Church came in then, and look, I'm not anyone that practice Catholicism and stuff like that. It's for friends that go to mass and stuff like that. 100% do what you need to do. You know, everybody has their spirituality. It's nothing to do with that, but it's to do with the power of the institutions and the managing of the people, the managing of the flock. And I think what happened when Collins was killed, De Valera came in, and it would have been, okay, we cannot let this kind of stuff happen again. Like, do you know what I mean? And basically Ireland reverted into, even though we won our freedom, it took another 20 years to get the actual republic, which we don't celebrate every year because we didn't actually win the whole country. Imagine that. Americans can't understand why we don't celebrate a republic. And it's almost like, because we never got the actual full republic, like, and the republic that we got, is it really a true republic? You know, that's the question people have to answer. Like, so then we reverted back into like an almost traditional, very Catholic country that was just completely, you know, keeping the people in their place. And then we suffered huge poverty around my dad's time and stuff like that. So then the European Union came in, and we were just like, oh my God, yes, 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 let's give them everything. And they gave us power in the sense of money, and we started building our country. But in that, we kind of lost our own voice because we only got 1% of the vote in Europe. And trust me, I want to be part of the European Union because it gives us a lot, but the price is a lot as well, you know? So I think the governments that have been in place since then, and I'm not a political scientist, I'm not in any way, shape, or form politically motivated or even associate myself with any political party. I'm just on the outside looking in, having a little opinion about it. But like the political parties that have been running the country ever since, patriotism, I mean, for God's sake, like, I mean, I don't see any of it. I really do not see people that really love Ireland. For what Ireland really was in the past. You know, I think people love Ireland in this kind of through the lens of either a religion or through the lens of a political party or through the lens of some sort of socio-economic lens. I don't think they love Ireland for what Ireland actually was, because I think we've lost the actual truth about what Ireland really was. And that's what I mean by the systematic and actual 100% attack on who we really are. And that's it. You know, I think, you know, it's not nothing is completely lost. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely think that we're moving into a direction where we've already lost our language, we've already lost our culture, kind of, in a sense. We kind of been made, like, it's funny that, you know, the way we kind of want to elevate other cultures, but when we think about our own culture, what is it that we elevate about our own culture? Like, what is it that we really love and respect and understand about our own culture? You know what I mean? It seems to be always like paddy whackery kind of stuff, or very kind of superficial stuff, you know? And I think that's why a lot of people, Irish people, suffers, because they've kind of forgotten, and they know deep down that they are something more than getting pissed in the pub, or more than the Catholic Church, or more than a political party. There's something more in them, you know? And that's what, going back to what you were saying, Dan, when we go into the west of Ireland, there's something comes up in us, like we're inspired by something, you know? And also, and I'll say lastly, it's like, why is it that it's always these type of movies that kind of always gets us the praise, where it's kind of like real impoverished west of Ireland, kind of almost comedic level stuff that is getting the praise? Why is that always elevated? Why aren't we making movies about our mythology, about our actual history? Why aren't we doing stuff that's actually elevating us? You know, why is it always about the struggle against the British? You know, why can't we elevate ourselves up beyond that? So definitely, to answer your question, I think the government does not have the best interests of real Irishness at heart. Now, I will say one thing: they're keeping the Gaelic language alive. In essence, like when I go on to the Lewis, go on to Dublin bus, it's everywhere. And I'm studying Irish now again as well. And I'll give him credit for that. And I'll give him credit for the TG Cahar and all that kind of stuff that is thriving. And we need to embrace that and definitely keep the embers of the Gaelic language going for sure. 100%.
Yeah, there's so many elements of it though, like that you touched on there, like you said, language. It's definitely in decline, like it's been in decline for a long time. Yeah, as you say, like there is a lot of like good work being done on it. I don't know how long it'll. I think like the nature of the way things works, and this isn't any like there's a lot of people immigrating, there's a lot of people emigrating. I think the culture gets lost when people come in, and like there's no that like that's I'm not having a go at immigration. Like people are entitled to come into the country, that's fine.
For sure.
But there's almost a thing that I kind of notice a bit is like there's obviously a serious kind of culture of like an Irish diasporas will say over in like parts of England, like say Manchester, Liverpool, or say probably the most famous ones in England, and then the likes of maybe New York, Boston over in the States, like and loads, whatever else you want to pick out. It's almost as if there's almost like a more kind of strong sense of Irishness abroad than there is back here.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know, maybe that's the fact they're all kind of together, and that's why they're all like, do you know the way if you see an Irish lad, like let's say you're on holidays and you see a lad in a Cavan jersey, like you go straight over to him. Like if he was at home, you would, you wouldn't, you might say
Yeah.
hello to him, but you wouldn't, you just talk to him about 20 minutes just because he's Irish. So it's almost like it's something they focus on so much. Maybe it's because they miss Ireland, and it's just like it's like a person, they it's such a strong part of their personality, like, and they just won't forget about it. They don't want to lose that touch with that touch with Irishness. So but yeah, like there was another thing you said towards the end. I can't remember what you but
like
yeah.
I think what's happened, like in terms of the stuff that I've been doing, like it's like in essence, you're saying when you're abroad, and I'm in contact with people at the moment that they're living in America and they're Irish and they want to do stuff with me, projects and stuff like that. We'll see what happens. We're collabing, kind of separate to what I'm doing. But what you're saying there, Dan, is like I'm half my audience is American, like, or American, Canadian, Australian, British. Yeah. So basically, where the Irish mainly are, half my audience is from there for sure. And actually, what I'm doing is not necessarily about me or anything to do with the way I'm like. There is a certain presentation to it that's probably working or whatever. But what it's really about is people want to hear this stuff. Like ultimately, that's what they want to hear, because they don't really hear this in school, and that's all on purpose. And they don't really see it on TV, because I believe now it's all on purpose, because they don't want the real truth about Celtic Ireland and Gaelic Ireland coming out. And I know that sounds weird. I know it sounds whatever, conspiracy theory, but I genuinely believe that's the case, because I can see it as clear as day. So that's why people are responding to this stuff. Like most of the comments I get, say for the Grace O'Malley thing, the Pirate Queen, why isn't there a movie about this? This is fucking.
Yeah,
This is
I was
unbelievable.
wondering
Yeah.
about that actually, yeah. Because that is a
Why?
fairly big thing, like.
Yeah, and especially the fact that she's such a feminist, right? So it's like she did not bow to Queen Elizabeth. Like, what the hell? Why? What the hell? And that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. That's written in the record. She did not bow, and apparently there was a dagger in her dress because she wasn't too sure if she was going to be killed or not. Now, I don't know if that's 100% true, but apparently that was the case. So, like, I mean, come on, that is a real story, you know? Like, and then people are like, that's the thing about Ireland, which is, and it's not our fault. There's this disconnect within us, not just the government, and the government are not all to blame for everything. It's because it's happening for centuries. And I did recent TikTok as well on this, and about the Roman thing, the Roman conquest of the world. We have to remember there was people back in those days, dictators and emperors, that wanted to dominate the whole entire world. Everybody focused on Hitler because we have video of him. But if we went back and videoed Caesars,
Yeah.
we would be seeing the reality of what they wanted. What they wanted was the whole entire world dominated by them, talking their language, talking their religion, talking their culture, and that's it. So that kind of continued later. People forget that actually happened in Ireland. We had our own culture, Gaelic culture, right up until 1169, and then the perfect storm happened, and the Roman Catholic Church, which was led by, at that particular period of time, the only ever English Pope ever to exist. He was in for 5 years. He gave the permission to King Henry II to take the lordship of Ireland. That was the end of everything. And that's why we don't hear about Gaelic Ireland before that. That's why there's no movies. I know Grace O'Malley's later on, but that's still the same thing. But that's why we don't hear about that. That's why we're not included in the Viking show, because they don't want that history, because that's the whole point. That was the dictatorship. That was the mission, was to conquer and to eradicate. You know what I mean? And that's what they did, you know? So
Yeah, but all them stories that lead up, and I people talk a lot of, actually, sorry, people don't talk. That's probably a problem, is people don't talk enough. But like the oppression, like that was in this country, like I've read a good bit about it, and it's always something I've been interested in. The only word is like, it was fucking horrific. Like, and this went on this was just all out oppression. And the British Empire did this and as you know what, you know better than me. So like countless amount of countries. I saw the movie Gandhi as well, and like all these, there's countless. These are countless amounts. But like you look at all these examples, and they always, I'd say, like, if it doesn't boil your blood looking even at the famine stories and the likes of, what are other good examples? Like the famine is a good example, and seeing all them pictures, even listening to the Fields of Athenry, like if that doesn't boil your blood, there's a serious problem with you and your nationalism. Like, and that, that should be a thing that kind of makes you a bit angry. It does make me angry. Anytime I watch Michael Collins, it kind of makes me a bit angry. And the wind that shakes the barley, like this kind of stuff should, it should kind of get under your skin a bit. And that's, but maybe it doesn't anymore. I think, look, in fairness, there is a thing where we kind of have to build bridges as well. And I'm not saying that we fucking have to hate the English, and that's not it at all. But
no,
there is a thing where we have to understand. No. We have to understand, like, build the bridge is fine, but never, like, that, all that stuff can never be forgotten. Because if it is, and I think we're kind of starting to forget it because it was so long ago, and because we're kind of all pally with the Brits now, and which is fine, but it does have to be, there has to be an acute remembrance of what happened.
Let's get one thing clear though, like the English people had no part. This is all coming from as I said, the vision and the conquest of the people that were the monarchy, and the aristocratic right underneath the monarchy. This was the vision and conquest of the world. Like, so it was not, the English people didn't go out and did, like, my mom is from London, like she's a plastic Paddy. I have an uncle over there. I have loads of cousins. So I love England. I was just over in London. London's a fantastic city. So it's nothing to do with English people. It's to do with what that conquest of the world, that eradication of cultures around the world that was emanating from the monarchies at the time, and that's the problem. That's the real the anger's at that. The regular peoples of the world weren't doing this. Like, do you get me? So there's no hatred, there's no animosity towards any people. There was just and there's no, to be honest with you, I don't hate, or I don't have animosity towards the past in a way, because I get contacted by people sometimes, like political groups, and people really want me to go into this get into a political thing, and just like, I'm not doing it. It's just, I'd rather understand things. And then what happens is that I have a very clear kind of picture about society and what's happening in the world right now. So then I find my own place in it, and I can say, okay, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing, and this is how I'm going to take steps towards my own kind of independence, my own freedom, my own thought processes. And maybe that might inspire others to do the same thing. But it's not about being hateful and vengeful and, fuck them and fuck this, or, we need this, we need that. It's more to do with understanding. I think the greatest minds in the world in any time were the philosophers, like, and that's what really people need to do, is start thinking. They just need to start thinking about things and understanding. Because when you think and you understand and you study, research, and you start speaking, that's power. What did Michael Collins, Eamon the Devil ever do? The actual killing people and actually the wartime stuff and the actual guerrilla tactics was a very tiny, tiny part. What they were doing was speaking to people, orating ideas, you see? So that's real power, you know what I mean? When you understand things, and they understood things. So,
Yeah, it's an interesting topic, but yeah, there's, look, yeah, as we've kind of touched on for the last few minutes, there's a bit of a a bit of a disconnect from the government. But like I think as we were talking earlier with the Republic, and I'll kind of we'll finish off with this kind of point on
Mm.
the Republic, but um I feel like we kind of not that I like I feel that it feels like we kind of got half of the I think a lot of
Mm.
people Irish people feel like that we got half of the job done, like, and
Mm.
getting 26 out of the 32, it still feels like doesn't feel like a real republic. Like, it's great to get it, and it's I'd
Hence why
rather
we
that.
don't celebrate it.
Yeah, I think that is, and I think there is a
Yeah.
bit of a dark cloud over it. And look, don't get me wrong, I'd much rather that than still be under British rule. It's better than nothing, but still there is that cloud. I don't think anyone like look, and that's what everyone will say. I'm assuming. Look, it's great to have it, but obviously we would rather the big prize like at the 32. So uh,
Personally, I don't think it's going to happen, though. I really don't, like, because I can't see how it will ever happen, because I don't think the British will ever want to let go of the Belfast port. Like, I just don't think we have to think about it from a point of view. Let's take us out of it and let's look at it from a British point of view in terms of them in governmental, a monarchy point of view. They're not going to want to give up that port. You know, it's too important to them, industrialized strategically. And I just think that's just going to be the case. Maybe I'm wrong. Jesus, I'd hope I'm wrong. But
yeah,
then what happens to all the other people, all the people that are have an allegiance to the monarchy? I mean, the reality is they're going to be still living there. So what's going to happen to them? I'm not saying that it should. I would rather have it, but just think of it logically. What's going to happen? So there will be another war probably. You know. So I don't know. It's a tough one, man. It's a really it's I think people don't understand. Do you ever notice this as well, Dan? Do you ever meet like Brazilians or people that visit Ireland? I just say Brazilians because there's so many in Dublin, but anyone that visits Ireland, they go straight to Belfast to see all the stuff in Belfast, like, and they
yeah,
just have no idea of the complication and the history of our relationship with it, like, you know. They
yeah,
don't. They see the flags and stuff like that. They're like, oh, different flags and stuff, but they're like, they have no idea. They just go straight to Belfast to see the Titanic museum and stuff, but they don't understand the actual complexity of it. You know.
yeah. No, yeah, because there is a lot to it. Like,
Mm.
but I don't know. I think the Republic is doable. Like, I don't know a
Yeah.
whole lot about it, but I think the one thing I was looking at that I did read was now this mightn't be completely accurate. I saw this in the Mirror about a month ago, and I read something about. I think there was a article, or maybe sorry, it might actually. I just read it a month ago. Might have been older than a month ago, but there was a thing about kind of not the pros and cons, but they just made a point in it that it costs the UK around 12 billion to keep the North running every year. Now I don't know, like as you said, the port they're getting back from it, but by a poll they did over in England, it doesn't seem that there's a whole. Now this is obviously from the people, not from the politicians that did the poll on, but it doesn't seem like there's a huge kind of need for like the big want from them to keep the six counties. Like, obviously that won't have any impact in the end, really, because it's going to be the politicians and it's going to be them really deciding. I don't know, does it go to a poll over there as well as here? I don't know, but as well as that, the polls over here are fairly well tipped towards United Ireland. But as you say, the last thing you want to see is lads going fucking killing each other
Well,
again.
trust me now, I want United Ireland. Don't get me
Yeah,
wrong. I'm just thinking about this in a logical way. Now, maybe I'm completely wrong here. And maybe if it's costing them more, and if there's more people in general that want it on both sides, including all the elites and aristocratic normal people, then it's doable. But I don't know. I don't know. Is it? And I hate that. Look, I hope I'm not alienating people, but is it just a Shinner? Is it just a Sinn Féin's kind of way of getting into power, like promising this to people? I don't know.
I don't
Like,
know. Yeah, you mightn't be too far wrong. I don't know. You could have a point, like,
yeah,
but
but I don't know enough about it because I'm not political.
yeah,
But look, let's hope. I mean, someday we might have United Ireland, and it might be a different story. But what that entails then is another question. But look, it'd be great. It'd be great because at least then Collins wasn't shot in the head for nothing, like, you know what I mean, and all the other people that were shot and killed, they weren't shot for nothing, like, you know, even though they weren't shot for nothing already. But I'm saying it would be a complete, um, it would feel complete then, for them at least,
yeah, definitely. Well, yeah, that
yeah.
was obviously the goal in the end.
Yeah.
I'm gonna finish off with the last question. I kind of just said I'd throw in a real fucking random one, and the most
Mm.
typical, like the kind of thing an American would ask you, said, "Do you believe in leprechauns?"
Well, can I just say one last thing, Dan? Can I
Yeah, go
just say
on. Yeah,
one last thing? And I
yeah,
just want to, and I probably should say this at the start, but I just want to say, from us having a discussion here and us talking about politics, religion, and philosophical ideas, anything historical stuff, it's not about attacking or defending anything or saying I'm right, you're wrong, and oh, I'm wrong, you're right. It's nothing to do with any of those things. So if anyone's listening, triggered or anything like that, don't please understand that conversation and discussion is the way the world will work better. And that's what I feel is necessary. And I've actually said things about 6 months ago that I actually kind of disagree with now. That's life. We evolve and we grow. And that's I just wanted to say that. So if anyone's upset or whatever about any little thing, that's not the intention. We're just having a conversation. And you can converse with me anytime you want through the comments or whatever like that. Just be respectful. Constructive criticism is always better than just attacking. So that out of the way. Do I believe in leprechauns? Yes, I do. And they're in Leitrim, and they're alive and well. And there's rainbows up there. If you get to the end of the rainbow, you'll win the lotto. Um, but no, there actually is a leprechaun myth, and yeah, they're part of the she. So they're a part of mythology. Yeah, but they're not the American versions, obviously. But they're definitely spiritually uh there in some essence. Yeah, for
yeah. I
sure.
definitely believe you. All I was just a bit discouraged the last two times I tried to follow the rainbow. I never got to the end to the pot of treasure.
Yeah,
So, but I still
if
believe.
you Lidl, if you go into Lidl after a shop and you just put in €4 into the Euro Millions, that's the end of your rainbow. Like if it
Yeah,
happens for you,
yeah. Oh, of course.
but
That's the proper treasure.
yeah. So yeah, no, I definitely believe. I believe. Do you know what, man? I believe in the supernatural realm, and in the supernatural realm, anything's possible. Um. So yeah, for sure. Can I ask you? Do you? So in all seriousness, do you believe in leprechauns?
Being 100% serious, I don't, but
Mm,
I wouldn't. I would never knock anyone for actually believing, like genuinely, not even as like a joke. Like I don't know. I don't know. I would. I don't know, to be honest. I thought I'd ask you just because I'm always on the fence about something like this. Like
mm,
whenever I don't know. Like I was talking to someone before, like even about like I had a paranormal lad on about this time last year, and he was like a ghost, not a ghost hunter, but he's like a paranormal like investigator, and he was like kind of I was asking him like, do you genuinely like believe that you are like did you are really coming into contact with real ghosts and like actual spirits, like, and he's like, yeah, I actually do. Like he said, we wouldn't be
mm,
doing this if we didn't
mm.
believe. So it's always just one of them things. I'm 50-50. I'm never like, no, they don't, or yes to do. I'm kind of, it's a very, yeah, but it's interesting though. Like I love all that stuff, like the likes of the paranormal stuff is very
Have
interesting.
you been to the mythological sites of Ireland, like the Hill of Tara, Newgrange? Have you been to these places?
Been to Newgrange, yeah. I must go to the Hill of
Yeah.
Tara actually.
Do okay. I'll do me a favor and then send me on the link for the paranormal guy after. I love to listen to that stuff. But
Hmm.
do me a favor. Then if oh, sorry, if I just tip my microphone. But if you go to the I know we need to finish up. But if you go to the Hill of Tara, right, and get the tour, put away your phone for a while, right? Do the actual go into the church, watch the documentary, get the tour. It's only €5. They'll bring you on, they'll show you around. But do me a favor and touch the Sheila the gig before you go in. And just put your everything that you know to the side for the moment and actually believe that you're walking into a sacred place and tell me how you feel. If you can do that and walk around by yourself for a while afterwards and come out and tell me, did you have any sort of experience in either internally, not externally, no, you don't have to see anything, but did you feel something? If you do, that's all you need to know. That's what the supernatural realm is. If you have this experience where there's something irking you or something's kind of hitting you in some way, that's a supernatural experience. It doesn't, or the spiritual experience doesn't have, you don't have to see things. I think people feel this stuff all the time and they just think like, oh, that's just whatever. Like, I had a bad cup of coffee or something,
Yeah.
you know. But trust me, try that out. And if you feel absolutely nothing, then fair enough. You don't believe. There's nothing for you. You're like, so try it out.
Yeah, no, I'll give that a lash, and I'll put that on my bucket list. So I'll get that done the
Yeah.
next few months.
Do and
Uh,
let me know.
yeah, actually, really, and I'll do that now.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, sure. Beckett, we'll wrap it up there. Yeah, I think we've about 40 or 50 minutes done there, so that's not a bad day's work.
yeah. You used
So,
to ask a different question at the end, though, didn't you?
what?
Did you used to ask a question? What are you happy?
Oh yeah, I kind of stopped. Yeah, geez. Yeah, fucking, I'll ask you that. So, are you happy? Forgot about that actually.
Genuinely, I'm happy at the moment, yeah.
Oh, that's
Genuinely
good.
happy. And I'm happy to be doing this podcast with you, Dan. And I appreciate you doing this. And fair play to you. I know you're quite young, aren't you? You're like 20, 21 or something.
20. Yeah.
Fair fucking play to you, man. Keep it up. You know, it's very important what you're doing, man. So I'm happy to be here with you, man. And I've really enjoyed this. So thank you.
Thanks, lad. Honored to have you on, and yeah, very good chat. So, yeah, sure, we'll wrap it up there, I suppose.
Oh yeah, come follow me at
Oh
Bertie
yeah, obviously,
Brosnan.
yeah, the important
At
bits.
Bertie Bro, this is a very important. It's the whole reason why I did this. Like everything else, discount everything else. At Bertie Brosnan on YouTube and on TikTok. At Bertie Brosnan. Dan will put up something in the description, hopefully. And
Yeah,
please follow me on Instagram at Bertie Brosnan Films, and you can get that on Instagram and Facebook. But I would love for you to come on Instagram, follow me there because I'm trying to build that. So thanks so much, Dan. Cheers.
good stuff. Right,
Cheers.
we'll leave it.